Breaking news. Viking Nation, the storm is here and it's about to shake everything you thought you knew about this franchise. 5 explosive revelations just dropped, and every single one of them cuts deep into the heart of Minnesota football. A veteran receiver who returned home might be the biggest regret of the front office. An offensive unit battered by injuries and chaos is sitting on the edge of a massive turnaround. A cornerback tied to the Vikings for months just slipped through their fingers in the most unexpected way. A young quarterback fighting through adversity continues to blow minds with maturity beyond his years. And a former draft pick who was cast aside is now dominating the league in a way that has everyone asking the toughest question. Did Minnesota give up too soon? Each of these shocks carries the weight of the entire season, and the answers could redefine what this team becomes in the weeks ahead. This isn't just news. Viking Nation, this is the kind of chaos that separates contenders from pretenders. And the storm is only beginning. Stay locked in, because what's coming next will test everything you believe about this roster, this front office, and this season. And if you're a true Viking believer, if you bleed purple more than you hate the Packers, smash that like button right now and let the league know that Viking Nation stands stronger than ever. Let's talk about a homecoming that was supposed to feel like magic, but instead turned into one of the most questionable moves of the entire offseason. The veteran receiver everyone knows, the hometown hero who gave everything to this franchise for a decade. He's back in purple. But hold on, because the return of Adam Thielen is raising serious questions inside the front office, and the numbers tell a story that Viking Nation wasn't ready to hear. When Kwesi Adofo-Mensah pulled the trigger on this trade in late August, sending more than a 4th-round pick and close to $4.5 million in cap space to bring Thielen back from Carolina, the move was supposed to add depth at a critical time. Justin Jefferson had missed most of training camp. Thielen Naylor was injured. Jordan Addison was staring down a suspension. Rondale Moore was done for the year, and Lucky Jackson had declined. The depth chart was a disaster, and Kwesi made the call to bring in a veteran who knew the system, knew the culture, and knew what it meant to wear the horns. It made sense in the moment, but 5 games into the season, it's starting to look like one of the moves Kwesi probably wants back. Through 5 weeks, Thielen has been relegated to the 4th receiver on the depth chart. 4 receptions, 37 yards. That's it. Those are numbers that would embarrass a practice squad player, let alone a 35-year-old veteran who was brought in to provide stability and leadership. And here's where it gets even more brutal. Xavier Scott, the 4th-string running back who only got snaps because of injuries to Aaron Jones, and Ty Chandler, has more receiving yards than Thielen. Scott has 7 catches for 63 yards and a touchdown in 4 games. Thielen has 4 catches for 37 yards in 5 games. Let that sink in. A running back who wasn't even expected to see the field is outproducing the veteran receiver, who cost Minnesota significant draft capital and cap space. Now, yes, there's more to a receiver's value than basic stats. Thielen brings leadership in the locker room. He's a solid blocker. He converted a crucial 2-point conversion in week 1 that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, and every single one of his 4 catches has moved the chains for a 1st down, which is exactly the kind of efficiency Minnesota hoped to see. But here's the reality check. When you're the 8th leading receiver on your own team, when you're being outpaced by a backup running back, and when your Pro Football Focus grade is sitting at 53.8, the worst of your entire career and ranking you 106th out of 125 qualifying receivers in the league, the value proposition starts to crumble. Kevin O'Connell tried to defend the move, tried to talk about the intangibles and the big picture contributions, but even he knows that for the investment Minnesota made, they needed more. They needed a playmaker who could step in when Jefferson or Addison went down. They needed someone who could convert in the red zone, who could be a safety valve on 3rd down, who could show up in critical moments. And through 5 games, Thielen hasn't been that guy. Now, there's still time. There are 12 games left on the schedule, and Thielen doesn't need to rack up monster stats to justify his spot. He needs to be decisive. He needs to make the plays that matter when the coverage gets sticky near the end zone. He needs to block like his life depends on it. He needs to convert those 3rd downs. But the clock is ticking, and Viking Nation is watching. The bye week might help. Thielen came back late in the offseason, dealt with a whirlwind of travel and transitions, and maybe the rest gives him a chance to reset and rediscover that edge. But right now, in mid-October, with the season on the line and the competition in the NFC North hotter than ever, this trade is starting to look like one Kwesi Adofo-Mensah would take back in a heartbeat. And if you're sitting there thinking the same thing, if you're wondering whether Minnesota should have invested that pick and that cap space somewhere else, drop a comment below and let Viking Nation know where you stand, because this story isn't over yet, but the pressure is mounting and the window for Thielen to prove his worth is closing fast. But hold on, as shocking as that Thielen situation is, the next update cuts even deeper, because it's about the entire offensive identity of this football team. The Minnesota Vikings offense has been a complete mixed bag through 5 weeks. They have scored more than 20 points in 4 of 5 games, including an absolute explosion of 48 points in Week 3 against Cincinnati, where they personally accounted for 3 of 4 of those. There have been flashes of brilliance, moments where Kevin O'Connell's play calling looked unstoppable, especially with the shift toward a quicker passing game. But there have also been stretches where the unit looked broken, disjointed, and frankly unprepared. And here's the thing, Viking Nation, the numbers are screaming that a massive positive regression is coming. And when it hits, this offense could be one of the most dangerous in the entire league. Let's start with the injuries, because they've been nothing short of brutal. On offense alone, Minnesota has lost 13 full games from starters, and most of that damage has been concentrated on the offensive line. Left tackle Christian Darrisaw has missed 2 games. Left guard Donovan Jackson has missed 2 games. Quarterback J.J. McCarthy has missed 3 games. Center Ryan Kelly has missed 2 games, and in those 2 games, he left at halftime. So it's really been worse than the numbers suggest. Right tackle Brian O'Neill missed 1 game, but played through 3 quarters of another, while clearly banged up. Running back Aaron Jones has missed 3 games. And here's the kicker. Against Cleveland last week, the offensive line had exactly 1 starter on the field during the final drive. 1. Right guard Will Fries was the only guy out there who was supposed to be starting, and the rest were backups and practice squad elevations trying to hold the line against one of the most physical defenses in the league. That's not just bad luck, Viking Nation, that's a disaster. And yet, despite all of that chaos, Minnesota has still found ways to move the ball and score points. Now imagine what happens when those starters come back. Imagine what this offense looks like when Darrisaw, Jackson, Kelly, O'Neill, and Fries are all healthy and playing together. Imagine what J.J. McCarthy brings to the table when he returns from that ankle sprain. Imagine Aaron Jones running behind a healthy offensive line. The ceiling for this unit is sky high, and the bye week couldn't have come at a better time to let these guys heal up and get ready for the second half of the season. But it's not just injuries. The penalties have been absolutely killing this team. Minnesota has racked up 4 of 4 penalties through 5 games, the most in the entire NFL. Last season, they finished with 110 penalties, which was 16th in the league. At their current pace, they're on track for 150 penalties this year, which would have led the league by 10 penalties last season. That's unacceptable. And the worst part, 16 of those penalties have come from the offense, and most of them are procedural penalties. The kind of mistakes that are completely self-inflicted. 9 false starts for delay of game penalties, 3 illegal formation penalties, 1 12 men on the field penalty. These aren't judgment calls by the refs. These are mental errors, communication breakdowns, and lapses in focus. And when you compare those numbers to last season, it's shocking. Last year, Minnesota had 25 false starts all season. They're already at 9 through 5 games. Last year, they had 6 delay of game penalties. They're already at 4. The good news is that most of these issues can be traced back to the lack of continuity on offense, especially at center and quarterback. When you're cycling through backups and practice squad players, communication breaks down, timing gets thrown off, and mistakes pile up. But when the starters return, when the offensive line gels, when J.J. McCarthy is back under center commanding the offense, a lot of these problems should clean themselves up, and Kevin O'Connell knows it. He's already said the bye week will be focused on tightening up the fundamentals, fixing the procedural mistakes, and getting the offense back to playing smart, disciplined football. Now here's the other side of the coin, the red zone. Last season, Minnesota struggled mildly in the red zone, ranking 19th in the NFL with a 55.7% touchdown rate. This year, even with all the injuries and chaos, they've improved to 66.7%, scoring 10 touchdowns and 15 trips. A huge part of that success has been Jordan Mason, who has 3 rushing touchdowns, all from inside the 5-yard line. That's exactly the kind of short yardage power Minnesota lacked last season, and it's a sign that O'Connell has figured out how to finish drives. So let's put it all together. The injuries are going to improve. The penalties are going to decrease as the starters return and the continuity builds. The red zone success is already trending up. This offense is sitting on the edge of a massive breakthrough, and when it hits, Viking Nation, the rest of the NFC North better be ready. Do you believe this offense can flip the script in the second half? Are you confident that the return of Darisaw, McCarthy, and Jones will unlock the full potential of this unit? Drop a comment and let Viking Nation know, because the next 6 weeks could define this entire season. And if you're here for the chaos, for the belief, for the purple and gold, hit that subscribe button right now, because what's coming next is even wilder. And just when fans thought the chaos couldn't get crazier, here comes the next bombshell. And this one involves a cornerback who was supposed to be a perfect fit for Minnesota, but ended up slipping through their fingers in the most unexpected way. Greg Newsome, the former Cleveland Browns cornerback who has been linked to the Vikings for months, just got traded, but not to Minnesota. He's heading to Jacksonville in a swap deal that sent Tyson Campbell to Cleveland. And for Viking Nation, it's a move that raises serious questions about what could have been. Let's rewind. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has never been afraid to pull the trigger on a trade. One of his first big moves as general manager was trading back in the 2020 draft to accumulate more capital. He's brought in TJ Hawkinson, Cam Akers, Joshua Dobbs, Cam Robinson, and most recently, Adam Thielen. Kwesi isn't shy about making moves when he sees value, and Newsome was a name that kept popping up in trade speculation all offseason. Why? Because Kwesi was part of the Browns front office when Cleveland drafted Newsome. In the first round back in 2021, he knows the player, he knows the talent, he knows the potential. And here's the thing, Minnesota's cornerback depth chart isn't exactly bulletproof. Byron Murphy was brought in during the offseason and has been a Pro Bowl level player. Isaiah Rodgers has been an absolute steal in free agency, one of the best signings Kwesi has made. But after those two, the depth gets sketchy. Jeff Okudah was signed with the hope that a change of scenery could unlock some of that top 5 draft pick potential, but through 5 weeks, his performance has been rough. His Pro Football Focus grade is sitting at 40.5, the worst on the entire team. And while Okudah's role is only supposed to be about a third or a quarter of the defensive snaps each week, it's still a weak spot that opposing offenses can exploit. The rookie Dwight McGlothern is the next man up, but he's raw and untested. Mickey Blackman, a former third-round pick, was shockingly traded to Indianapolis in August, so that depth option is gone. And when you add it all up, Minnesota could have used another young, talented cornerback with upside. Enter Greg Newsome. In June, Cody Benjamin from CBS Sports wrote an article suggesting that the Vikings should make a move for Newsome. His reasoning was solid. Minnesota had invested heavily in the trenches during the offseason, but the secondary was still missing a long-term answer at cornerback. Stephen Gilmore was gone. Cameron Benham had moved on, and with Kwesi's history with Newsome in Cleveland, the connection made perfect sense. At just 25 years old, Newsome had the youth and the talent to be a long-term piece in Brian Flores' defense. It was a move that made too much sense, and now it's gone. Jacksonville swooped in and grabbed Newsome in a trade that sent Tyson Campbell to Cleveland, along with a 7th-round pick in 2026. In exchange for Newsome and a 6th-round pick in 2026, it's a straight-up cornerback swap, and both teams are betting on a change of scenery and unlocking something in their new players. For Minnesota, it's a missed opportunity, or is it? Here's the reality check. The cornerback position hasn't been a disaster for the Vikings this season. Rodgers and Murphy are playing at an elite level, and they might be one of the best cornerback duos in the entire league. Okudah's struggles are concerning, but his role is limited, and it would be a waste of resources to invest heavily in upgrading a position that only sees 25 to 30% of the defensive snaps. If Minnesota really wanted to add another cornerback, there are still options out there. Rick Woolen in Seattle is a name worth monitoring. He's young, he's got incredible physical tools, and if the Seahawks are willing to move him, Minnesota should absolutely make the call. But the truth is, cornerback isn't the biggest need right now. The offensive line has been decimated by injuries, and adding depth there should be a higher priority as the trade deadline approaches. Still, watching Greg Newsome land in Jacksonville stings a little. One of his last moments with the Browns was getting torched by Justin Jefferson, which is fitting in a weird way. And now he's joined former Vikings players like Nick Mullins, Johnny Munt, and Coach Grant Udinski in Jacksonville. It's a small world in the NFL, and sometimes the moves you don't make are the ones that haunt you the most. Do you think the Vikings should have made a stronger push for Newsome? Should Kwesi target Rick Woolen instead? Or is the cornerback depth good enough as it is? Let Viking Nation know in the comments, because the trade deadline is coming fast, and the decisions Minnesota makes in the next few weeks could be the difference between a playoff run and an early offseason. But trust me, the story only gets darker from here. The next twist will leave you speechless, and it's about the young quarterback who was supposed to be the future of this franchise, but has instead spent the first 5 weeks watching from the sideline. J.J. McCarthy, the first-round pick who lost his entire rookie season to a knee injury, is now missing games again, this time with an ankle sprain that has kept him out of the last 3 contests. He suited up for the trip to Europe, traveled with the team for 2 games, but never took a snap. For most players, that kind of bad luck would be crushing. The mental toll of fighting back from injury is so close to playing, only to get knocked back down again. It would break a lot of people, but not J.J. McCarthy. In fact, his response to adversity is what has teammates, coaches, and Viking Nation more convinced than ever that this kid is built different. Jonathan Greenard, the edge rusher who signed with Minnesota in the offseason and has been one of the best free agent additions Kwesi has ever made, went on the up, and Adams showed this week and absolutely raved about McCarthy's maturity, and what he said was eye-opening. Greenard admitted that if he were in McCarthy's shoes, dealing with a rookie season wiped out by injury and then missing more time as a sophomore, he'd be mentally shattered. I would be way more depressed because I got the taste of the situation, Greenard said. I waited so long. I'm mentally prepared. We're ready to go to the Super Bowl, and then I have this setback, like it would send me into a spiral. That's raw honesty right there. Most players would struggle with that kind of emotional roller coaster. You train your entire life for the NFL. You get drafted in the first round. You're told you're the future. And then injuries steal away the moments you work so hard to reach. But McCarthy? He's not spiraling. He's not sulking. He's not letting the frustration consume him. According to Greenard, McCarthy has found a different perspective. And a huge part of that comes from becoming a father. McCarthy and his partner welcomed a child earlier this year, and that responsibility, that new lens on life, has completely changed how he processes adversity. I definitely see that, Greenard said. I think the maturity aspect, him having the kid now, everything kind of slowed down for him at times. So he has a different perspective on things, which is great for him. Greenard knows that shift firsthand. He had his daughter during his time in Houston, and he remembers how it changed everything. The losses didn't feel as heavy. The setbacks didn't feel as crushing. There was something bigger than football waiting at home. And a coach in Cleveland once told him something that stuck. Things don't happen to you. They happen for you. And you really don't see things in that moment under that perspective. But it can seem like, well, why do I have to sit out to enjoy the benefits that I worked for? That's a powerful way to reframe adversity. Instead of asking why me, you start asking, what can I learn from this? And that's exactly the mindset McCarthy has embraced. The time on the sideline isn't wasted. It's time to study the game at a deeper level. It's time to watch how defenses adjust. It's time to see how Kevin O'Connell schemes up plays and manages the clock. It's time to build relationships in the locker room, to earn respect not just as a player, but as a leader. And when McCarthy steps back onto that field, and trust me, Viking Nation, it's coming soon. He's not going to skip a beat. Greenard said it best. He's been a professional in that, and he's way more mature in that aspect. So when he gets back, there won't be a drop-off. I'm just picking up where I left off and bringing a little bit more to the table. That's what you want to hear about your franchise quarterback. Not that he's frustrated, not that he's impatient, not that he's pressing. You want to hear that he's locked in, that he's growing, that he's learning, and that when the moment comes, he'll be ready. Every single time you hear a teammate talk about McCarthy, it's nothing but praise. They talk about his work ethic. They talk about his football IQ. They talk about his leadership. And you never know he's only 22 years old based on the way veterans speak about him. He carries himself like someone far beyond his years. And that maturity is exactly what this franchise needs at the quarterback position. The injuries have been brutal. Missing an entire rookie season is devastating. Missing more time as a sophomore is frustrating. But here's the truth. When J.J. McCarthy finally takes the field as the full-time starter, he's going to be more prepared, more focused, and more ready than any rookie quarterback in recent memory. The adversity isn't breaking him, it's building him. And when he steps into that huddle, Viking Nation better be ready, because this kid is about to show the entire league what he's made of. Do you believe in J.J. McCarthy? Are you confident he's the future of this franchise? Let Viking Nation know in the comments, because the wait is almost over, and the moment he takes the field, everything changes. And listen closely. The next 72 hours might be the most decisive in this franchise's history, because what we've just walked through isn't just a collection of storylines. It's a snapshot of a team standing at the crossroads between greatness and mediocrity, and every single decision made from here on out will determine which direction this franchise goes. Let's recap the chaos. Adam Thielen, the hometown hero brought back to provide depth and leadership, is sitting as the fourth receiver on the depth chart with numbers that don't justify the investment. The front office might be quietly wondering if that fourth-round pick at $4.5 million in cap space could have been better spent elsewhere. And unless Thielen flips the script in the second half, this trade is going to haunt Quesiado Fomenta for a long time. The offense, battered by injuries and drowning in procedural penalties, is sitting on the edge of a massive positive regression. When Christian Darrisaw, Donovan Jackson, Ryan Kelly, Brian O'Neill, and J.J. McCarthy all return to full health, this unit has the potential to be one of the most explosive in the entire league. The pieces are there. The talent is undeniable. The question is whether Kevin O'Connell can clean up the mental mistakes and get this offense firing on all cylinders before the playoff race heats up. Greg Newsome, the cornerback who was linked to Minnesota for months, slipped through the Vikings' fingers and landed in Jacksonville. It's a move that might not matter in the long run, especially with Isaiah Rodgers and Byron Murphy playing at an elite level. But it's still a reminder that opportunities in the trade market don't last forever. If Minnesota wants to add another piece before the deadline, whether it's a cornerback like Rick Woolen or offensive line depth to protect against more injuries, they need to move fast. J.J. McCarthy, the franchise quarterback dealing with the most frustrating start to his career imaginable, continues to impress everyone around him with his maturity, his perspective, and his unshakable belief that the adversity he's facing is happening for a reason. When he finally steps onto that field as the full-time starter, Viking Nation is going to witness something special, because this kid has been preparing for this moment his entire life, and the wait is only making him sharper. And then there's Ed Ingram, the former second-round pick who struggled for 3 years in Minnesota, got benched, got traded to Houston, and is now grading out as the best guard in the entire NFL according to Pro Football Focus. That's the kind of twist that makes you question everything. Did the Vikings give up on him too soon? Did the coaching staff fail to unlock his potential? Or is this just a small sample size fluke that will regress to the mean as the season goes on? Only time will tell, but right now, watching Ingram dominate in Houston while Minnesota's offensive line is held together with duct, tape, and prayer stings more than anyone wants to admit. So where does that leave us? Viking Nation, 5 weeks into the season, sitting at the bye week, staring at a roster that is simultaneously more talented and more frustrating than anyone expected. The potential is undeniable. The talent is elite, but the execution has been inconsistent, and the margin for error in the NFC North is razor thin. Detroit is rolling. Green Bay is dangerous. Chicago is improving. And Minnesota is sitting right in the middle of the chaos, trying to figure out if they're a contender or a pretender. The next 6 weeks will answer that question. When the starters return, when the penalties get cleaned up, when J.J. McCarthy takes the field, when the offense hits that positive regression and starts dominating like everyone expected, that's when we'll know if this team is built for January football, or if they're going to fall short once again. But here's what I know for sure. Viking Nation doesn't quit. You don't give up on this team when things get tough. You don't turn your back when the injuries pile up. You don't lose faith when the trades don't go your way. You show up. You believe. You ride with this team through every high and every low, because that's what it means to wear the purple and gold. So if you're still here, if you're still locked in, if you still believe that this team can make noise in the NFC, then prove it right now. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and tell Viking Nation which storyline has you the most fired up. Hit that subscribe button and let the entire league know that Viking Nation stands stronger than ever, because the war is just beginning, and we're not backing down. And if you think this was wild, just wait until the rivals make their counter move, because that war is only beginning. The next 72 hours could change everything. Stay tuned, Viking Nation. The storm is coming.